Hey everybody, it is Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast, and I want to do a video on some perhaps terrible writing advice. I don't know. You let me know what you think. I've written both for comics and for novels. I've got several published works under my name, and I still feel like I'm learning a lot. Writing is one of those things you can write just millions of words and still feel like you're learning. There's a lot to the craft. And so I think the more respect you give the craft of writing, the more diligence you put into improving writing, the better off you are. In this case, though, when you put someone on a pedestal as some kind of writing god and they don't respect the process, then you get some bad advice that comes out of that. So we're going to get into that. Before we do, Downcast is on Indiegogo, right? Sorry, Indiegogo. It's on alternataccess.com. You can go and buy it for $1.99. The books are here. I know the storm slowed them down quite a bit, but word has it that it's Friday. They should be here today. So you can buy it here, get it $1.99. I mean, nothing to complain about there. Also, Indiegogo, we have Fatal right now on Indiegogo. Back it. And this is looking to ship this summer. That is the plan. All right, so let's get into the video. Apparently, I'm a bigot or something, and I've been blocked. So I have to open up a separate one here. We're looking at Mags Visaggio. Again, don't contact Mags. All right, so here's their bad writing advice, perhaps. I have a challenge for aspiring professional comic book writers. Write a script without any narrative captions at all. No running monologue. Nothing beyond location captions. Captions are often a crutch for inexperienced comic writers that let you pretend you're writing prose. I'm going to stop this right there. Hold on a minute. Captions are actually fantastic for comics. Have you noticed that you don't see thought balloons very much anymore? I never see thought balloons. And that's because captions can actually do the same work as thought balloons. Did you know that show and don't tell, that moniker that they tell every writer, it's not just about showing pictures. You can actually show through your writing. The way that you can do that is using captions. You can juxtapose memories from a character, some kind of, you could go the monologue route. You can do all sorts of stuff with those captions that will help underline what visuals you're seeing on the page. That is so amazing. Comics are words and pictures. Yeah, you can do a comic with just pictures. That can be cool. But to say that every comic book or the best comics books, the best writers only use pictures is just ridiculous. That's not true at all. I would rather adjust this and say the crutch that inexperienced noobs use is using too many words on a page. They're pontificating too much. That's more of a problem, I think, than if you're using captions versus word balloons, in my opinion, and in, I think, the opinion of a lot of others. All right, so Mags continues. Neil Gaiman can do whatever he wants. You aren't Neil Gaiman. My good gracious. Neil Gaiman does it because it's effective, because he's a very good writer. Okay, Mags continues. Focus on developing your skills in visual storytelling rather than yammering at the reader. Now, I get it. You don't want to yammer at the reader, that's for sure. But again, if you don't know how to show with your words and not tell, that's part of the craft of writing. If you can write a novel and show and don't tell, it's just words. You can still show readers something. You don't have to tell them everything. Show them with your words. All right. You let them draw conclusions from your words. You imply things. That's how writing works at its best. Let's see. Comic books is not writing prose, except I'll add when it is. When you add a little bit of prose to it, it doesn't have to be long for it to be considered prose, by the way. Prose can be in one simple caption box. It could be 30 words or less. Okay, Mags continues. It's a completely different medium with completely different best practices. It is a completely different medium. There are some different best practices, but they don't conflict. Good storytelling is good across the board, actually. that you have to know before you have to know how to follow before you break them. But these aren't rules though; they're made up rules. Go read early Claremont Uncanny X-Men and read them 5 years in. He goes from telling you what's happening in crowded, wordy captions to pulling back and letting the page do the work. The end result is a much more inventive, interesting experience. Again, that's one method that he used to tell stories, and that's okay. Again, I think it's a great idea not to use too much words. You want to pull back, but also words are going to help control the reader's pace. So sometimes you're going to want to have scenes or pages or even panels that have a bit more dialogue to slow down things. And then you're going to want to pull back on dialogue when you want things to move more quickly. That's the fantastic thing about dialogue. It's a tool that you use, and it is, in fact, an important tool because you're not making an art book, you're making a comic book, which is a story. All right, last one here. Once you know how to do that, narrative captions become a tool rather than a crutch, wielded as necessary and used to elevate, not explain, the action on the page. So there's one thing I got to say when it comes to action on the page and the just realities of making comic books. Sometimes you'll write a script and you run across a scene or a section in a comic book that doesn't visually make sense. The art doesn't really convey what's actually happening. So even adding a sound effect which is words, will show the readers what is happening. If you have a click, if somebody's holding up a gun and you see click next to it, you realize that there's motion happening and that the gun is being, cocked. There are moments that you'll run into as a writer when you see the panel on the page, and the most important thing is clarity. And sometimes you're going to have to add a line of dialogue that helps the reader understand what is happening in that panel when the art can't do it by itself. This happens more than you would think. And it happens all over. Any artist that does it, any artist, you'll find moments where words help reinforce what's happening. And it's not a bad thing. It's clarity. All right. So let's see. That's not it. So essentially this got put up. What was this trending? Comics yesterday. An author unravels what makes comic writing different from prose writing. YA fiction and comic book writer Magdalene, do I say that right? Visaggio shared a thread for aspiring comic book writers. In it, Visaggio challenged aspiring professionals to write a script without relying on narrative captions in order to hone their visual storytelling skills. Now, I don't think this is a bad exercise, honestly, in and of itself, but I think the problem is saying that captions are a crutch. Get good at captions. Write good captions, but that should be the same with action and panels. You want to write good action and make panels count. Everything there is important. If it's in the book, it should be important, but that goes with captions too. If you're writing bad captions, of course they're bad. Maybe they're a crutch. If you're writing bad ones, write good ones. And that's part of the medium, a very big part of the medium. So a lot of people have quite a lot to say about it, actually. A lot of comic book writers. Here's one. Screwing my face at the idea that narrative captions in comics are bad / a sign of a weak writer. Oh, please. People will not stand for this. The thing is, now that I've made a video about it, I feel like everyone's going to turn around and say, Mags knows everything again. Or here's another one from Leah Williams. Really important to specify that Marvel doesn't accept unsolicited pitches, though. People can't cold pitch with Marvel IP. They don't. Okay, wait. One here from Patrick Zurcher at the beginning. I skipped down ahead. He said, a genuine tip for writers wanting to work at Marvel. Pitch a story that relates to the Marvel comic book universe. Know what happens in the current titles and present an idea that reflects or is adjacent to that. This is advice I'm passing on from a senior Marvel editor. Okay. Now that could be advice. That could be good advice. That's important, helpful advice. Maybe more than some other advice. All right, here we go. From Christopher Sabella. I got 2 Eisner nominations for a book with tons of captions and 2 nominations for a book with almost none. So Write your book whatever way you think works best. And he continues, there's literally no rules. Do it all, F up and fail. Who cares? All right. And a lot of people have been thinking this. We got the thank you memes. Yes. This is not a rule for writing comics. And if you went to a class and you learned how to write from Scott Snyder, surely you learned that Scott Snyder uses captions quite a lot. And I think at his best, he uses them to great effect. Again, using captions that tell a story, and then you wonder what that story has to do. It's almost like a memory or a side story. If you keep it brief and you keep it important and you use it to show the readers something else about the character and what it has to do with the visuals and the current situation, you can actually make a very deep and impactful story. It's very helpful. Here we go. Dan Waters. I don't think debate about which specific tools in the writer's arsenal should or shouldn't be used is really constructive. Use the tools, use them well. Use them like no one's used them before. Yeah, that's tough to do, no doubt. But yeah, make captions good. It's not that you don't use captions or it's the sign of a bad writer. Here's another response here. Been trying to think of a not shady way of saying this. That's because if you repeat it, if you say that there's something wrong with that advice, then you become a bigot. And pretty soon you're going to be looking through incognito windows like me. But this is pretty succinct, and that was the 2 Eisner thing, and just, write it how you see fit. Anyway, to sum this all up, I want to know what you think. Is that terrible advice, good advice? Is there something to it? My personal opinion is that if you're writing a comic book, yes, write action that is important, write scenes that are important, that matter, write captions and dialogue that matters, that shows readers something new. You can show with words. It doesn't just have to be pictures. That, after all, is a writer's job. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.